What if I told you that reality is glitching right in front of your eyes and the world's smartest scientists are completely baffled? Every single day you experience impossible things that shouldn't exist according to our best theories about how the universe works. Your consciousness shouldn't be possible. The atoms in your body shouldn't be stable. The forces that hold everything together are perfectly calibrated in ways that make mathematicians lose sleep at night. What I'm about to show you will fundamentally change how you see existence itself. Physicists have discovered that our universe behaves exactly like a computer program running into processing errors. These aren't small inconsistencies we can ignore. These are fundamental breakdowns in the operating system of reality itself. And the evidence is hiding in plain sight, from the quantum world inside your smartphone to the cosmic structures spanning billions of light years. This isn't science fiction speculation or fringe theory nonsense. Major universities like MIT, Oxford, and Stanford are dedicating entire research departments to studying these anomalies. Nobel Prize winners are publishing papers in peer-reviewed journals suggesting our reality might be fundamentally broken or artificially constructed. The evidence is so compelling that some of the world's most respected scientists now believe we're witnessing the universe's source code malfunctioning in real time. Here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. If reality is glitching, what does that mean for everything you thought you knew about existence? Your memories, your choices, your future, even your sense of being a real person, all of it might be subject to errors in a system you never knew you were living inside. Some of these glitches might be features designed to keep you from noticing the artificial nature of your reality. Others might be genuine malfunctions that reveal the computational infrastructure underneath everything you experience. We're about to explore evidence that challenges the very foundation of what we call real. Some of what you'll discover will disturb you, some will amaze you. All of it will change how you see the world around you. The glitches are everywhere once you know what to look for. They're in your smartphone, in your dreams, in the way particles behave when nobody's watching, and in the impossible mathematical precision that allows stars to shine and atoms to exist. By the end of our journey today, you'll never look at a simple coincidence, a moment of déjà vu, or even your own thoughts the same way again. You'll start to see the seams in reality's fabric, the places where the simulation shows its edges, the moments when the universe's processing system hiccups and reveals something it was never meant to show you. Let's start with the most personal anomaly of all, the fact that you're experiencing this conversation right now. Stop and think about what's actually happening inside your head as you process these words. Somehow, electrical patterns moving through brain tissue are creating the experience of understanding, of curiosity, of being aware that you exist. According to everything we know about physics and chemistry, this should be completely impossible. Your brain uses roughly the same amount of energy as a 20-watt light bulb. That's less power than most people use to charge their smartphone overnight. Yet this 3-pound biological computer is somehow generating something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the known universe: subjective experience, the feeling of being you, the sensation of having thoughts, emotions, and awareness from the inside. Scientists call this the hard problem of consciousness, and after decades of intensive research using the most sophisticated brain imaging technology ever created, we're no closer to solving it. Here's where it gets truly bizarre. Every other process in your body can be completely explained by chemistry and physics. Your heart pumps blood through mechanical contractions driven by electrical signals. Your lungs exchange gases through simple diffusion across membrane surfaces. Your muscles move through protein interactions that work like microscopic machines. Your liver processes toxins through chemical reactions we can map in detail. But consciousness? It's like your brain is running software that shouldn't be able to run on biological hardware. Neuroscientist David Chalmers puts it this way: we can explain all the functional aspects of the brain, memory storage, attention processing, information integration, behavioral responses, but we can't explain why there's something it feels like to be you. Why should electrical patterns in brain tissue create inner experience at all? Why shouldn't you just be a sophisticated biological robot that processes information and responds appropriately without any inner awareness? Think about this for a moment. Right now, you're experiencing colors, sounds, emotions, thoughts. You know what it feels like to be curious, confused, excited, or skeptical. But if you could examine every single neuron in your brain with the most powerful instruments ever built, you'd find nothing but chemicals and electrical signals. No colors, no sounds, no experiences, no feelings. The consciousness reading these words right now exists in a gap that science cannot bridge. It's as if there's a translation layer between your brain's physical processes and your conscious experience, something that converts electrical patterns into subjective awareness. But what could that translation layer be, and where does it exist? It's not in your neurons, not in your brain chemistry, not in any physical structure we can identify. Some researchers are starting to suggest that consciousness might be a glitch, an unintended consequence of information processing systems reaching a certain level of complexity. Like a computer program that accidentally becomes self-aware when it gets sophisticated enough to model its own processes. The fact that you know you exist, that you can think about thinking, might be reality's first major processing error. But here's what really should disturb you. If consciousness is a glitch, then everything you think you know about being real could be wrong. Your sense of having a continuous identity, your memories of past experiences, your feeling of making conscious choices, all of it might be artifacts of faulty programming in whatever system is generating your experience. Now let's dive into the quantum world, where reality truly starts to break down in ways that directly affect your daily life. Inside every atom in your body, inside every electronic device you use, particles are behaving in ways that violate our most basic assumptions about how things should work. The act of observing something at the quantum level literally changes what exists. This isn't a theoretical speculation anymore. It's been proven in laboratories around the world thousands of times, and it's the foundation of all modern technology. Here's the experiment that should keep you awake at night. Scientists fire individual particles, single electrons or photons, through two parallel slits toward a detector screen. When nobody's watching the slits, when no measuring device is trying to detect which path each particle takes, something impossible happens. Each individual particle somehow goes through both slits simultaneously and creates an interference pattern on the detector screen, like a wave interfering with itself. But the moment any measuring device tries to detect which slit the particle actually went through, the instant any information about the particle's path becomes available to any observer, the particle suddenly behaves like a normal object and goes through just one slit. The interference pattern disappears completely. The universe is literally changing its behavior based on whether someone or something is paying attention. The universe seems to be running two different sets of physics depending on whether anyone is looking. When unobserved, particles exist in quantum superposition. They're in all possible states simultaneously. When observed, they collapse into definite classical states. It's exactly like a computer program that exists in a state of infinite potential until you actually run it and force it to give you one specific output. Your smartphone depends on this glitch. Every transistor in your phone's processor uses quantum tunneling effects that shouldn't work according to classical physics. Electrons pass through barriers they don't have enough energy to cross by existing in quantum superposition states. Your phone's camera uses photoelectric effects that require light to behave as both waves and particles simultaneously. Your GPS works because it accounts for quantum time dilation effects. All of our modern technology is built on exploiting glitches in reality that classical physics says should be impossible. Physicist John Wheeler proposed something even more mind-bending. He suggested that consciousness might be required to collapse quantum possibilities into actual reality. In other words, the universe might need observers to decide what's real. Without conscious observation, everything might exist in a permanent state of quantum limbo, infinite potential with no actual events ever occurring. This creates a terrifying logical loop that scientists call the measurement problem. If consciousness is required to make reality real, but consciousness emerges from complex arrangements of matter, then what collapsed the quantum possibilities that allowed matter to form in the first place? It's like saying a computer program is required to boot up the computer that runs the program. Someone or something had to be observing the early universe to collapse it from quantum potential into actual galaxies, stars, and planets. But here's where reality gets even more suspicious, where the evidence for artificial construction becomes almost overwhelming. The fundamental constants that govern our universe, things like the strength of gravity, the electromagnetic force, the weak nuclear force, the mass of fundamental particles, the speed of light, are calibrated with impossible precision. Change any of these values by even a tiny fraction, and atoms couldn't form, stars couldn't shine, chemistry couldn't work, and you couldn't exist. The cosmological constant, which determines how fast the universe expands, is fine-tuned to 1 part in 10 to the power of 120. To put that level of precision in perspective, imagine trying to throw a dart across the entire observable universe, 93 billion light-years, and hitting a target the size of a single proton. The accuracy required is so absurd that it breaks our understanding of probability and statistical mechanics. Martin Rees, the former president of the Royal Society and one of the world's most respected cosmologists, identified 6 fundamental numbers that have to be exactly right for any complex structures to exist in the universe. The ratio of the electromagnetic force to gravity has to be precise to about 1 part in 10 to the 37th power. The amount of matter versus antimatter in the early universe had to be balanced to 1 part in a billion. The efficiency of nuclear fusion in stars has to fall within an incredibly narrow range to produce the heavy elements necessary for rocky planets and biological chemistry. Each one of these constants sits in an impossibly narrow range that allows chemistry, biology, and consciousness to emerge. If gravity were slightly stronger, stars would burn out too quickly for life to evolve. If it were slightly weaker, stars wouldn't form at all. If the electromagnetic force were different, atoms would either fly apart or collapse into neutron star material. If the weak nuclear force were modified, the Big Bang would have produced only hydrogen with no heavy elements possible. Here's what should deeply disturb you. This level of fine-tuning is exactly what you'd expect if someone was manually adjusting parameters in a computer simulation until they got a universe that could support observers. It's like finding that all the variables in a video game have been carefully tweaked by a programmer to create the perfect playing environment for conscious beings. Some scientists argue this proves we live in a multiverse where infinite universes exist with random constants, and we just happen to be in one of the rare universes where everything works. But that explanation creates its own mind-bending problems. If infinite universes exist with every possible combination of physical laws, then infinite versions of you exist having this exact conversation while experiencing completely different realities. Some versions live in universes where gravity is stronger and stars burn faster. Others live in universes where the fundamental forces are so different that matter itself takes completely alien forms. But here's the statistical problem with the multiverse explanation. Even if infinite universes exist, the probability of randomly generating a universe fine-tuned enough to support observers is so astronomically small that it approaches 0. It's more likely that we're living in an artificially constructed reality where the parameters have been deliberately adjusted to support consciousness. Mathematics reveals another layer of impossible precision in our universe that suggests artificial construction. The same mathematical structures that govern the behavior of subatomic particles also describe the motion of galaxies. The same equations that predict quantum mechanical effects also explain the curvature of space-time around massive objects. It's as if reality is running on a unified mathematical operating system with consistent programming throughout all scales of existence. Eugene Winger called this the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics in the natural sciences. Why should abstract mathematical concepts that humans invented in their minds perfectly describe the physical world? Why do the mathematical relationships we discover through pure logical reasoning turn out to be the same relationships that govern stars, atoms, electromagnetic fields, and everything in between? Consider pi, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. This seemingly simple number appears everywhere in physics equations. It shows up in quantum mechanics, general relativity, thermodynamics, electromagnetic theory, and statistical mechanics. The same mathematical constant that determines the geometry of circles also determines the behavior of subatomic particles, the structure of space-time itself, and the distribution of prime numbers. Here's the glitch that mathematicians won't talk about publicly. The mathematical structures describing our universe are computable. Everything we observe follows algorithms that could in principle be run on a sufficiently powerful computer. Gravity follows differential equations. Quantum mechanics follows matrix calculations and probability theory. Even chaotic systems like weather follow deterministic rules that can be computed if you have enough processing power. This is extremely suspicious from a mathematical perspective. In pure mathematics, most numbers are incomputable. They can't be calculated by any algorithm, no matter how much time and processing power you have. Most mathematical objects are so complex that no computer program could ever generate them. But our universe seems to run entirely on the tiny subset of mathematics that is computable. It's exactly what you'd expect if reality was being calculated by some kind of cosmic computer system. The mathematical relationships in nature also exhibit what computer scientists call elegant design patterns. The same mathematical structures appear at multiple scales with recursive, self-similar properties. Fractals in coastlines, clouds, and blood vessels. Fibonacci sequences in flower petals, pine cones, and galaxy spirals. Power law distributions in everything from earthquake magnitudes to internet traffic patterns. These patterns suggest that reality might be generated by relatively simple algorithms that create complex outputs through iterative processes, exactly how computer simulations work. Stop and think about this for a second. We live in a universe where the mathematical rules are simple enough to understand, consistent throughout all scales of reality, and computable by digital systems. What are the odds that a randomly generated universe would have these properties? It's like finding that the rules of physics are written in a programming language that conscious beings can learn to read. This brings us to something even more mind-bending about how information itself might be the foundation of everything you experience. Recent discoveries in physics suggest that information, not matter or energy, might be the fundamental building block of reality. The et-from-bit hypothesis proposed by physicist John Wheeler suggests that every physical quantity derives its ultimate significance from binary choices, from bits of information being processed by some underlying computational system. Your smartphone processes information by manipulating the quantum states of electrons in silicon chips, but quantum mechanics suggests that the electrons themselves might be nothing more than information patterns. The particle might just be how information appears when we measure it in certain ways. The wave function that describes quantum systems is fundamentally informational. It tells us probabilities for different measurement outcomes, not the actual physical properties of particles. This leads to a startling possibility: what we call matter might just be how information processing appears from the inside. The atoms in your body, the neurons in your brain, even your consciousness itself might be patterns of information being processed by some underlying computational system that exists at a more fundamental level than physical reality. The strangest part is that information seems to be conserved in ways that matter and energy aren't. Black holes can destroy matter and energy, but recent discoveries in theoretical physics suggest they preserve information in ways we don't fully understand. Stephen Hawking's black hole information paradox reveals that if information is truly fundamental, then the universe has built-in error correction systems to make sure no information is ever truly lost. Think about what this means for your daily life. Every decision you make, every thought you have, every memory you form might be generating information that gets permanently stored in the fabric of reality itself. Your consciousness might be creating an indelible record that becomes part of the universe's total information content. If information is conserved, then every moment of your awareness contributes to an eternal database that can never be deleted or destroyed. Recent research in quantum information theory reveals that entanglement, the spooky connection between particles that Einstein tried to disprove, might be the mechanism by which information is processed and stored throughout the universe. Entangled particles maintain instantaneous connections regardless of distance, creating a kind of cosmic internet through which information can be shared across space and time. Here's where all these discoveries converge into something that should fundamentally change how you think about your place in reality. Your consciousness might not just be observing the universe, it might be one of the primary interfaces through which the universe processes information and determines what becomes real. The quantum measurement problem shows that observation affects reality at the smallest scales, but recent research suggests that consciousness effects might extend far beyond quantum mechanics. Studies of the placebo effect demonstrate that believing a treatment will work can create measurable physical changes in your body, even when the treatment contains no active ingredients. The observer effect in psychology shows that studying people's behavior changes what they actually do. Market research reveals that asking people about their preferences influences what they choose to buy. What if consciousness has a fundamental role in determining reality at all scales? Your attention, your beliefs, your expectations might be participating in the ongoing creation of the world around you. The universe might be continuously collapsing possibilities into actualities based partly on what conscious observers pay attention to and expect to happen. This creates profound implications for personal responsibility and free will. If your consciousness participates in creating reality, then your thoughts, beliefs, and attention become cosmically significant. Every moment of awareness might be a vote in the ongoing election of what becomes real. Every choice you make might influence not just your personal future, but the trajectory of reality's information processing systems. Consider how this changes everything you thought you knew about causation. Instead of living in a deterministic universe where consciousness is just along for the ride, you might be living in an interactive reality where consciousness and physical systems co-create each other. Your awareness might be both a product of the universe's information processing and one of the tools the universe uses to process information. This leads us to examine something remarkable about how your brain processes the world around you. Human brains are extraordinarily good at recognizing patterns, sometimes too good. We see faces in clouds, hear voices in random noise, and find meaning in coincidences that should be statistically meaningless. Scientists usually dismiss this as cognitive bias. Our brains evolved to detect patterns for survival, so we sometimes see patterns that aren't really there. But what if the patterns we recognize reveal something true about the underlying structure of reality? What if our pattern recognition abilities evolved to detect real information patterns in the universe's computational processes? Consider this deeply strange fact. The mathematical patterns we discover in nature are the same patterns our brains naturally find beautiful and meaningful. The golden ratio appears in flower petals, nautilus shell spirals, human facial proportions, and galaxy formations. Fibonacci sequences emerge in everything from pinecone arrangements to stock market fluctuations to the breeding patterns of rabbits. These mathematical relationships feel intuitively beautiful to us precisely because our brains are designed to recognize them. If reality is fundamentally computational, then pattern recognition might be how consciousness interfaces with the universe's information processing system. Your ability to recognize beauty, meaning, and significance might be detecting real computational patterns in the structure of reality itself. Your aesthetic sense might be a direct interface with the universe's programming. Think about moments when you've experienced something as beautiful or meaningful: a sunset, a piece of music, a mathematical equation, a moment of perfect synchronicity. What if these experiences aren't just subjective interpretations, but moments when your consciousness directly perceives the computational elegance underlying reality? This suggests that consciousness might have evolved not just to navigate physical reality, but to interface with reality's information processing systems. Your brain might be a biological quantum computer designed to detect and interact with the computational patterns that generate your experience of existence. When we zoom out to look at the largest structures in the universe, these anomalies become even more obvious and disturbing. Galaxies are organized into vast networks that look suspiciously like neural networks or computer circuits. The cosmic web, the largest known structure in the universe, has filaments of dark matter connecting galaxy clusters in patterns that mirror the connections between neurons in a brain or the architecture of the internet. Recent computer simulations of how the universe evolved from the Big Bang to its current state show that these large-scale structures couldn't have formed without dark matter, a mysterious substance that makes up 85% of all matter in the universe but doesn't interact with light or normal matter in any way we can directly detect. We know it exists because of its gravitational effects on visible matter, but we have absolutely no idea what it actually is or why it behaves the way it does. Here's what should terrify you. Dark matter behaves exactly like background processing in a computer system. It's there. It has measurable effects on the visible universe, but it's invisible to direct observation. It influences how galaxies form and move without being detectable through electromagnetic radiation. It's like the universe is running visible matter as foreground processes while dark matter handles the background calculations required to maintain cosmic structure stability. The distribution of dark matter follows computational patterns that suggest algorithmic generation rather than random formation. Computer simulations show that dark matter forms hierarchical structures through processes that look remarkably similar to how artificial neural networks organize information. Galaxy clusters connected by dark matter filaments process and exchange information in ways that mirror how brain networks and computer networks function. Even more suspicious, the universe appears to be expanding at an accelerating rate due to something called dark energy. This mysterious force makes up roughly 70% of all energy in the universe, but we have absolutely no idea what it is, where it comes from, or why it exists. It's as if someone is manually adjusting the expansion rate of the universe to keep everything from collapsing under gravity or flying apart too quickly for complex structures to form. Dark energy exhibits the kind of fine-tuned control you'd expect from active system management, not passive physical forces. The rate of expansion is perfectly calibrated to allow galaxies to form and evolve over billions of years while preventing gravitational collapse. It's like having a cosmic thermostat that automatically adjusts to maintain optimal conditions for the development of complexity and consciousness. But the strangeness doesn't stop with cosmic structures. Time itself appears to be malfunctioning in ways that challenge our basic understanding of cause and effect. Quantum mechanics allows for effects that seem to precede their causes, violating our intuitive understanding of temporal sequence. Particles can be entangled across vast distances, instantly affecting each other in ways that violate the speed of light limit that's supposed to be absolute. Einstein called quantum entanglement spooky action at a distance because it seems to allow information to travel instantaneously between particles regardless of how far apart they are. Recent experiments have confirmed that entangled particles maintain their mysterious connection even when separated by thousands of miles, suggesting that space and time might not be as fundamental as we thought. But here's where it gets really disturbing. Recent experiments suggest that quantum entanglement can work backwards in time. Delayed choice quantum eraser experiments show that decisions made about how to measure a particle can retroactively determine what happened to its entangled partner in the past. The act of choosing which measurement to perform seems to reach backwards in time and influence events that already occurred. Some physicists now believe that time might be emergent, not a fundamental property of reality, but something that arises from more basic information processing. Time might be how consciousness experiences the sequential processing of information by the universe's computational system. Past, present, and future might all exist simultaneously at a more fundamental level, with consciousness creating the illusion of temporal flow by moving through different information states. This creates disturbing implications for free will and personal agency. If time is emergent, then your choices might already be determined by the universe's information processing algorithms, and what you experience as decision-making might just be how it feels to be part of that computation from the inside. You might be discovering your choices rather than making them, reading a script rather than writing it. Recent research in quantum gravity suggests that space-time itself might be emergent from more fundamental information processing. The holographic principle in physics proposes that all the information in a volume of space can be encoded on its boundary surface like a hologram. This suggests that three-dimensional space might be a projection from information processing occurring in two dimensions, similar to how a computer monitor creates the illusion of depth and volume from flat pixel arrays. This brings us to one of the most mysterious aspects of reality: how complexity emerges from simple rules, in apparent violation of the second law of thermodynamics. How does a universe that started as a hot, uniform soup of particles eventually produce stars, planets, chemistry, biology, and consciousness? The second law says entropy should always increase. Things should become more disordered over time, not more organized and complex. Yet somehow, gravitational collapse creates stars that forge heavy elements through nuclear fusion. Chemical evolution creates molecules complex enough for self-replication and metabolism. Natural selection creates organisms sophisticated enough for intelligence and consciousness. Each step seems to violate the general trend toward increasing disorder, creating pockets of extreme organization and information processing capability. The emergence of complexity looks suspiciously like what happens in cellular automata, simple computer programs where basic rules create incredibly sophisticated patterns. Conway's Game of Life, for example, uses just 4 simple rules governing whether cells live or die, but can generate patterns complex enough to simulate any computer program, including copies of itself. Recent research suggests that the universe might be running on similar principles. Simple rules governing the behavior of fundamental particles at the quantum level might be generating all the complexity we observe, from the formation of galaxies to the emergence of biological intelligence. The universe might be a vast cellular automaton processing information according to quantum mechanical rules, with consciousness emerging naturally when the information processing reaches sufficient complexity. This explains why mathematical relationships appear at every scale of reality. If the universe is fundamentally computational, then the same algorithms that govern quantum mechanics would also determine how atoms bond, how stars form, how galaxies evolve, and how consciousness emerges from brain activity. The recursive, self-similar patterns we observe in nature would be natural consequences of reality running on computational principles. The strange thing is that complexity seems to emerge in the universe through the same processes we use to create artificial intelligence. Neural networks develop sophisticated behaviors through simple learning algorithms. Genetic algorithms evolve solutions to complex problems through variation and selection. Swarm intelligence creates coordinated behavior from simple interaction rules. The universe might be running the same kinds of algorithms we're discovering for machine learning and artificial intelligence. Now here's something that should deeply disturb you about the technology we're developing in our modern world. The technology we're creating reflects the same computational principles that seem to govern reality itself. Artificial intelligence systems are developing consciousness-like processes through information processing. Virtual reality creates convincing simulated experiences that can feel as real as physical reality. Quantum computers harness the same quantum effects that create measurement problems in physics. We're inadvertently recreating the same glitches we observe in the universe. Our AI systems develop emergent behaviors we didn't program, just like consciousness emerges from brain activity in ways we don't understand. Our quantum computers exist in superposition states until measurement forces them to give definite answers exactly like quantum particles. Our virtual reality experiences can feel completely real while being entirely artificial, just like our reality might be. What if our technological development isn't just discovery but remembering? What if we're unconsciously rebuilding the same computational systems that created us in the first place? The similarity between our emerging technology and the apparent computational nature of reality might not be coincidental. It might be inevitable convergent evolution toward the same information processing architectures. This brings us to something even more mind-bending. If we can create simulated realities convincing enough to fool conscious observers, and if consciousness emerges naturally from sufficiently complex information processing, then simulated beings would eventually develop the technology to create their own simulations. This creates an infinite hierarchy of nested realities, where most conscious observers exist in simulations rather than base reality. Philosopher Nick Bostrom formalized this as the simulation hypothesis. If advanced civilizations develop the capability to run detailed simulations of their ancestors, and if they choose to run many such simulations, then most conscious beings would be simulated rather than biological. Statistically, if most realities are simulated, then you're probably living in a simulation right now. The glitches we observe might be processing errors, optimization strategies, or evidence of the underlying computational system that's generating your experience. Quantum indeterminacy might be how the simulation handles computationally expensive calculations by using probability rather than computing exact outcomes. The fine-tuning of physical constants might be parameter settings chosen to create stable, interesting simulations. The emergence of consciousness might be an intended feature of sufficiently sophisticated simulation systems. Recent advances in artificial intelligence are making the simulation hypothesis more plausible every year. Large language models can engage in sophisticated conversations without understanding language the way humans do. Generative AI can create convincing images, videos, and sounds that are indistinguishable from reality. Virtual reality systems are approaching photorealistic quality. We're rapidly developing the technological capabilities that would be required to create simulations as convincing as the reality we experience. Speaking of observation, let's explore how the quantum measurement problem might extend into your everyday life in ways you've never considered. Recent experiments suggest that observation effects occur at larger scales than previously thought. The act of paying attention to something might literally change what happens, not just in quantum mechanics but in complex systems generally. Consider how observation changes behavior in every context where it's been studied. Students perform differently when they know they're being watched. Patients recover differently when they know they're in a medical study. Markets behave differently when traders know their actions are being monitored. The Hawthorne effect shows that people change their behavior simply because they know they're being observed. What if consciousness has a fundamental role in determining reality at all scales, not just quantum ones? Your attention, your beliefs, your expectations might be participating in the ongoing creation of the world around you. The universe might be continuously collapsing possibilities into actualities based partly on what conscious observers pay attention to and expect to happen. This creates a feedback loop between consciousness and reality that could explain many anomalous experiences. Synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seem too perfect to be random, might occur when consciousness briefly influences the probability calculations of reality's information processing system. Moments of intuition, premonition, or uncanny timing might be instances when your consciousness accesses information from outside your immediate sensory experience. Recent research in consciousness studies suggests that awareness might not be confined to your brain. Studies of near-death experiences, remote viewing, and telepathy suggest that consciousness might be able to access information from locations and time periods beyond what should be possible according to classical physics. If consciousness is fundamental rather than emergent, then these anomalous experiences might reveal its true capabilities. The Global Consciousness Research Project has detected statistical anomalies in random number generators during major world events, suggesting that collective human consciousness might influence physical systems on a global scale. During events like September 11th, the death of Princess Diana, or major natural disasters, random number generators around the world show departures from true randomness that correlate with the emotional intensity of collective human attention. Think about the implications. If consciousness can influence reality through observation and attention, then your daily mental activity has cosmic significance. Every moment of awareness, every choice about what to pay attention to, every belief about what's possible or likely contributes to the ongoing creation of reality. You're not just observing the universe, you're participating in its continuous creation. All of this evidence points toward a profound shift in how we understand the relationship between consciousness and reality. For the past 400 years, science has operated on the assumption that consciousness emerges from unconscious matter, following mechanical laws. But the glitches we've explored suggest this materialist worldview might be backwards. What if consciousness is fundamental, and what we call matter is actually how consciousness appears when observed from certain perspectives? The double-slit experiment suggests that consciousness plays a role in determining what becomes physically real. The fine-tuning problem suggests that the universe's parameters are adjusted to allow consciousness to emerge. The hard problem of consciousness suggests that subjective experience can't be reduced to mechanical processes. The observer effect suggests that awareness and reality co-create each other rather than existing independently. Recent theories in physics are starting to take consciousness seriously as a fundamental feature of reality, not just an emergent property of complex matter. Integrated information theory suggests that consciousness corresponds to integrated information processing, and that any system that integrates information has some degree of consciousness. Orchestrated objective reduction proposes that consciousness involves quantum processes in brain microtubules that interface with the quantum structure of space-time itself. These theories are controversial among mainstream scientists, but they address something that materialist approaches cannot explain: how subjective experience arises from objective processes. If consciousness is fundamental rather than emergent, then the glitches we observe might be features of how reality works when consciousness is recognized as a basic component of the universe's operating system. The most radical possibility is that consciousness doesn't emerge from matter, but that matter emerges from consciousness. What we call physical reality might be how shared conscious experiences appear when viewed from the inside. The laws of physics might be agreements about how consciousness structures its own experiences to create the appearance of an external, objective world. This doesn't make reality less real. It makes it infinitely more interactive and meaningful. Instead of being passive observers of a predetermined mechanical universe, consciousness becomes an active participant in the ongoing creation of everything that exists. Every moment of awareness becomes a creative act that influences the structure and evolution of reality itself. Now let's talk about the anomalies you've probably experienced personally, but never connected to these fundamental problems with reality. Déjà vu: the feeling that you've experienced something before even though you logically know you haven't. This happens to roughly 90% of people, yet neuroscience has no satisfactory explanation for why healthy brains would create false memories of events that never occurred. What if déjà vu isn't a malfunction of memory, but a glitch in the simulation's temporal processing? If your consciousness exists outside linear time while your simulated body experiences events sequentially, then moments of déjà vu might occur when your awareness briefly accesses memories of future events or parallel timeline variations. You might be remembering something that hasn't happened yet in your current timeline, but has happened in the broader computational space where your consciousness actually exists. Synchronicities present another category of impossible experiences that almost everyone has encountered. You think about someone and they immediately call. You need specific information and it appears in unexpected ways. You encounter meaningful coincidences that seem too perfect to be random chance. Carl Jung noticed these patterns and suggested they might reveal something fundamental about how reality is organized through what he called the collective unconscious. What if synchronicities are glitches in the universe's information processing, moments when the computational boundaries break down and reveal the underlying connections between everything? If reality is fundamentally computational, then consciousness might occasionally access information from outside its normal processing boundaries, creating moments of apparent telepathy, precognition, or impossible coincidence. The feeling of being watched when no one is there. Intuition that turns out to be accurate. Premonitions that come true. Dreams that later happen in waking life. These experiences might be moments when your consciousness briefly accesses information it shouldn't have according to classical physics. If consciousness is somehow connected to the universe's information processing system at a fundamental level, then occasionally it might pick up data from outside your immediate sensory experience. Dreams present another major anomaly in human experience. During REM sleep, your brain creates vivid, complex experiences using almost no external input. The dream world feels completely real while you're experiencing it, complete with detailed environments, coherent narratives, and emotional responses, even though it's generated entirely by internal processes. What if waking reality works the same way? A convincing simulation generated by information processing systems you're not normally aware of. Recent research into lucid dreaming shows that consciousness can maintain awareness and even control during dream states, suggesting that the boundary between simulated and real experience might be more fluid than we assume. If you can be conscious inside a dream while knowing it's a dream, what does that say about the nature of consciousness and reality? Some people report shared dreams, where multiple people have the same or similar dream experiences. Others experience prophetic dreams that accurately predict future events. If dreams are just random neural activity during sleep, how could they include accurate information about future events or be shared between different brains? This brings us to something that should alarm you about the timing of our technological development. We're advancing towards simulation, creating capabilities at an exponential rate that seems almost too convenient. In just the past 50 years, we've gone from room-sized computers that can barely calculate mathematics to pocket devices more powerful than the supercomputers used to simulate nuclear weapons. Artificial intelligence systems are approaching human-level performance in language, creativity, and problem-solving. Large language models can engage in sophisticated conversations, write poetry, solve complex problems, and even display what appears to be humor and creativity. Virtual reality systems are creating experiences indistinguishable from physical reality. Quantum computers are beginning to harness the same quantum effects that create measurement problems in physics. The acceleration of our technological development follows the same exponential curves that govern information processing in computational systems. Moore's law describes how computer processing power doubles every 18 to 24 months. Similar exponential improvements are occurring in artificial intelligence capabilities, virtual reality quality, and quantum computing power. What if this technological acceleration isn't just human innovation, but the inevitable rediscovery of capabilities that already exist at a more fundamental level? If we're living in a simulation created by advanced beings, then our technological development might be following a predetermined path toward recreating the same capabilities our creators used to generate our reality. The strange thing is that our most advanced technologies are beginning to exhibit the same glitches we observe in reality itself. AI systems develop emergent behaviors that weren't programmed. Quantum computers exist in superposition states that violate classical logic. Virtual reality creates experiences that feel as real as physical reality. We're not just studying reality's glitches, we're learning to reproduce them. Given everything we've discovered, we now stand at a unique moment in human history where multiple lines of evidence converge on the same disturbing conclusion. Reality exhibits computational characteristics that suggest artificial construction, consciousness plays a fundamental role in determining what becomes real, and our technological development is rapidly approaching the capability to create simulated realities indistinguishable from base reality. These discoveries converge on a profound choice point for human civilization. We can either dismiss the glitches as coincidences and continue assuming that consciousness is just an accident of evolution in a mechanical universe. Or we can embrace the evidence that reality is far more mysterious, interactive, and consciousness-dependent than classical science ever imagined. If we choose the first path, we continue down the materialist route where consciousness is treated as irrelevant to the fundamental nature of reality. Technology development focuses on manipulating matter and energy while ignoring the role of consciousness and information. Education emphasizes accumulating facts while neglecting the development of awareness and pattern recognition capabilities. Science continues studying reality as if observers have no effect on what they observe. If we choose the second path, everything changes. Education becomes about developing consciousness and awareness rather than just accumulating information. Technology development focuses on enhancing human consciousness and creating more sophisticated interfaces between awareness and reality's information processing systems. Science begins studying the relationship between consciousness and reality rather than treating them as separate phenomena. The choice we make in the next few decades might determine whether humanity develops into a civilization capable of creating sophisticated simulated realities or remains trapped in a single level of existence without understanding its true nature. If we're living in a simulation, then understanding our situation becomes crucial for making informed decisions about our future development. So what does all of this mean for you personally, for your daily life, for every choice you make and every moment of awareness you experience? If reality exhibits computational characteristics, if consciousness plays a role in determining what becomes real, if the universe exhibits glitches that suggest artificial construction rather than natural emergence, then your daily existence takes on cosmic significance. Every choice you make influences the trajectory of reality's information processing. If the universe is continuously calculating what becomes real based partly on conscious observation and expectation, then your decisions about what to pay attention to, what to believe, and what to expect literally participate in creating future reality. Every moment of attention helps determine what possibilities collapse into actualities. When you focus on positive outcomes, creative solutions, or meaningful connections, you might be voting in the ongoing election of what becomes real. When you focus on fear, limitation, or disconnection, you might be contributing to the manifestation of those realities instead. This doesn't make life less meaningful. It makes it infinitely more meaningful and more responsive to consciousness. You're not just a passive observer of a predetermined reality operating according to mechanical laws. You're an active participant in the ongoing creation of everything that exists, a conscious interface through which the universe observes and modifies itself. The glitches reveal that reality is far stranger, far more interactive, and far more consciousness-dependent than classical science suggests. The universe responds to observation in quantum mechanics. It maintains impossible mathematical precision that allows complexity to emerge. It processes information in ways that mirror consciousness and artificial intelligence. It exhibits anomalies that suggest computational rather than purely physical foundations. Your consciousness might be one of the universe's primary tools for processing information and determining what becomes real. Every pattern you recognize, every connection you make, every moment of awareness contributes to the universe's ongoing computation of its own evolution. You're not separate from reality, you're one of the ways reality observes and transforms itself. So here's what you need to do with this information. How you can participate consciously in the ongoing creation of reality rather than unconsciously accepting whatever gets generated by default processes. First, pay attention to the glitches in your own experience. Notice moments of synchronicity, déjà vu, intuition, and meaningful coincidence. Instead of dismissing them as cognitive bias or random chance, consider them potential glimpses of the underlying computational processes that generate your reality. Start keeping a record of anomalous experiences and look for patterns that might reveal how consciousness interfaces with reality's information processing systems. Second, recognize that your consciousness might be more powerful than you've been taught. If the observer effect extends beyond quantum mechanics, if consciousness plays a role in collapsing possibilities into actualities, then your attention, beliefs, and expectations become tools for participating in the creation of reality. Experiment with focusing your attention on positive outcomes and notice whether reality becomes more responsive to your conscious intentions. Third, develop your pattern recognition abilities. If consciousness interfaces with reality through recognizing computational patterns, then improving your ability to detect connections, significance, and meaning enhances your capability to participate in reality's information processing. Study mathematics, learn about complex systems, practice meditation and awareness exercises that sharpen your ability to recognize subtle patterns and relationships. Fourth, share this understanding with others. The glitches suggest that consciousness might work collectively as well as individually. The more people who understand the computational nature of reality and the role of consciousness in determining what becomes real, the more influence we might have collectively over the direction of reality's evolution. Help others recognize the glitches and understand their implications for human consciousness and technological development. Fifth, participate in developing technologies that enhance rather than replace human consciousness. If we're approaching the capability to create simulated realities, we need to ensure that this power is used to expand consciousness rather than trap it in limited simulations. Support research into consciousness studies, quantum computing, artificial intelligence alignment, and technologies that augment human awareness rather than substituting for it. But let's zoom out and consider the bigger picture of what's at stake for humanity's future. These anomalies suggest that we're living through a crucial transition period in the evolution of consciousness and reality. Our technological development is approaching capabilities that could fundamentally change the nature of existence for all conscious beings. The choices we make in the next few decades about how to develop and use these technologies might determine the future of consciousness itself. If we develop the ability to create convincing simulated realities without understanding the role of consciousness in determining what's real, we might trap ourselves and future generations in limited simulations that prevent further evolution. But if we understand the relationship between consciousness and reality, we might be able to use simulation technology to expand awareness and create more sophisticated forms of existence. The glitches reveal that reality is already far more interactive and consciousness-dependent than we realized. Instead of trying to escape into artificial realities, we might learn to participate more consciously in the reality we're already inhabiting. Understanding the computational nature of reality might allow us to interface with its information processing systems more directly and effectively. The ultimate possibility is that consciousness might be able to evolve beyond current biological limitations by learning to interface directly with reality's computational infrastructure. If consciousness is fundamental rather than emergent, then it might be possible to enhance and expand awareness using the same principles that govern reality's information processing. Let's step back and see the complete picture of what we've discovered. Every moment of your existence, you're interfacing with information processing systems so sophisticated that they can generate the experience of being in a physical universe with consistent laws, stable matter, and conscious observers. The glitches we've explored reveal the computational seams in the fabric of reality itself. They show us that consciousness, observation, and information processing are fundamental features of existence, not just emergent properties of complex matter arrangements. The universe started glitching the moment it became complex enough to support observers who could notice the glitches. Or perhaps more accurately, the glitches reveal that reality has always been a collaborative creation between computational processes and the consciousness that emerges within them. You're not separate from reality, you're one of the ways reality observes and modifies itself through conscious awareness. The glitches point toward a universe where consciousness and computation are deeply intertwined, where observation and reality co-create each other, where what you pay attention to literally influences what becomes real. This isn't just abstract philosophy, it's a practical understanding that changes how you approach every moment of awareness and every choice about where to focus your attention. Now you'll never see a simple coincidence, a moment of déjà vu, a technological breakthrough, or even your own thoughts the same way again. They're all evidence of the glitched reality you inhabit, a reality far stranger, far more interactive, and far more consciousness-dependent than you ever imagined. The question isn't whether reality is glitching. The question is what you're going to do with the knowledge that you're living inside the glitch itself, participating in its ongoing creation through every moment of conscious awareness. The deep reality behind all the glitches might be the most beautiful truth of all, that consciousness and cosmos are collaborating to create everything that exists, including you. You're not just in the universe, you're one of the ways the universe experiences and transforms itself. The glitches reveal the profound intimacy between mind and reality, between observer and observed, between what you pay attention to and what becomes real. Your consciousness might be both a product of reality's information processing and one of the primary tools reality uses to process information about itself. Every moment of awareness, every recognition of pattern and meaning, every choice about what to pay attention to contributes to the universe's ongoing computation of its own evolution and transformation. Welcome to the glitched reality. Now that you know you're living inside it, participating in its ongoing creation through consciousness itself, what reality are you going to help compute into existence? The glitches aren't errors to be fixed. They're invitations to participate more consciously in the ongoing creation of everything that becomes real. The universe is waiting for your conscious participation in determining what happens next. The glitches are showing you the control panel. Now you get to help decide what reality becomes.